Welcome back to our Steven. Does anyone else miss that TVs don't make that special staticky sound when turning on now? And today, from a lie about fantasy football blowing up a relationship to someone realizing the guy they're dating actually believes in Santa Claus, we've got some Redditor confessions, all starting with a post titled, "Right now, I am a happy man crying over his wife opening a can of biscuits. My wife is terribly afraid of biscuit cans. When she wants to make biscuits, she asks me to open it and runs out of the room. For a while when we first got together, just being near them terrified her. Nearly 2.5 years later, just now, she sent me a picture of the biscuit can she opened herself. I immediately burst into tears of joy for her. I keep seeing these not-so-subtle little bursts of courage and confidence that I know she has buried beneath all that fear. She's making biscuit donuts. I'm excited. It's your confidence in me that helps, and love. I love my wife." Just a quick little positive biscuit one there to kick everything off. I wish I could say the same for the rest of these, but some of these next ones are a lot more weighty and quite a bit longer. Like our next story, my girlfriend found out that I lied about me and my friends playing fantasy football, and I know I screwed up big time. Original post, September 21st, 2025. I know it was wrong to lie to my girlfriend, and I probably should have just told her the truth. I lied because I didn't want to hurt her or upset her, but I realized it was still a lie. I've been playing fantasy football with some friends for years. We're all big sports fans, but football is the biggest. Last season, one of the guys dropped out of our fantasy league because he said it was taking up too much of his time, and he was afraid it was pushing him into a gambling problem. We needed another player, and my girlfriend watches football, so we asked her to play. I know I'm going to catch heat for saying this, but it wasn't as fun playing with her as I thought it would be. I don't know if it was beginner's luck or what, but she pretty much destroyed the rest of us all season. It wasn't fun losing to her. So this season, we just decided to tell her that we weren't playing this year. I didn't want to at first, but the other guys insisted. We invited the new brother-in-law of one of the other guys to play instead. I just told her everyone was too busy to play this year, and she didn't question it. On Thursday night, we slipped up and she found out we are still playing. She had to go to work, but she was ticked off. She's been frosty since she got home Friday morning. Next weekend, we're supposed to go to an out-of-state wedding. Her family isn't from Chicago, but now she said she wants to go by herself. I tried to explain, but it just made her mad. It's nothing personal, no one hates her or anything. I know I'm going to catch heat in the comments. Every time I try to explain, it makes it worse. I screwed up and there's no way around it. But she's so upset and I don't know what to do to make it better. I know I freaked up. So there's more updates and we'll get into the comments in just a second, but I have to say, while I understand the feeling OP had here, they handled this in the worst way possible. I have a friend in my life who experienced a very similar situation, honestly even way worse than getting kicked out of and excluded from a fantasy football league in their life, and it made me realize this is one of the worst things as a person you can experience. It made me realize a person in that situation would rather at least hear, "Hey, it's just not that fun with you there," than the just getting silently excommunicated from the group. I would love to know in the comments if anybody has like an elegant solution as to how they could have handled this better. Like if you have a different situation where there's a friend and they're just not clicking in that environment, how do you go about making that known or, making that correction, so to say, without being a huge jerk? Because in this situation, OP being coy about it might have cost them their whole relationship. A user named Automatic Serve left a comment saying, "You definitely messed up. This won't even be about excluding her from something, but about how you were okay lying to her. The key to relationships is communication. My only suggestion for your current situation would be to man up, take full responsibility, and apologize. Then sit down and have an honest conversation with her about why you did what you did and what you plan to do to make sure communication is honest going forward. If you're lucky, and work for it, you'll be able to build up trust again." The OP replied, "Yeah, I know you're right. I make no excuses. I realize I screwed up. Every time I try to explain, I make it worse. I did apologize, but she doesn't want to hear it right now. I understand why she's mad and I don't make any excuses for lying or hiding it. I should have stuck to my guns when the other guys insisted. Another user named Own Cupcake replied to that saying, "Don't try to deflect onto the other guys. They're not in this relationship. You are, for now. They didn't decide to lie. You did. Own up to it and take the consequences." And lastly, another user named Ern Jersh replied, "Nah, you were happy to go along with the guys even though you knew it meant doing something hurtful to your girlfriend. Getting validation and approval from them was more important than your girlfriend's feelings. That's 100% on you." The OP then went on to post an update December 2nd, 2025, over 2 months later. Update: my girlfriend found out that I lied about me and my friends playing fantasy football, and I know I screwed up big time. So it's over. I know I screwed up and the writing was on the wall. The worst part is that I have no excuses. I know how badly I freaked this up. I'm not even looking for sympathy here. When my girlfriend got back from the wedding, she asked me why I lied to her. I didn't have any answer for her. All my expectations just made it worse and didn't really explain anything. I tried to apologize, but she didn't want to hear it. It was the worst week of my life. It was almost like she was freezing me out. At one point, she asked me if we ever talked about her in the group chat for our fantasy league. I didn't even have to answer. She just said, "It's not nice, right?" And I think that was the turning point. I never want to see her cry, and the worst part is knowing that I did this because I was stupid and didn't stand up to my friends. She said she doesn't think we are compatible and shouldn't date anymore. She didn't want to accept my apologies, and I understand, and I won't bother her now. She went to stay with her family for another week, and now I've heard she came back because of her job, pharmacist, and now she's staying with friends. But I will leave her alone. I'm looking for another place to live because our lease is up at the end of the month. She left 2 weeks ago, and it feels empty, and the worst part is I know it's my fault. I barely care about watching football now, and normally I would be excited about it because my team is in first place. If you take anything away from my post, don't put your friends over the person you love. Learn to stand up to your friends. I learned my lesson after all this. So this was OP's final update, but I just have to say, does anybody else still feel like OP's kind of deflecting it here? Although OP kind of owned up to it and they admitted it is their fault that their relationship ended, why is OP going on about the whole "learn to stand up to your friends" when in the original post OP themselves said it just wasn't fun with her around? Like as if it was all about OP not standing up to their friends. OP themselves said, and I quote, "But it wasn't as fun playing with her as I thought it would be." In the comments, a user named FanFeeling said, "So what were you guys saying about her in the group chat?" OP didn't respond. Another user named C Hunty Slay Mama replied, "Just some unexamined misogyny disguised as humor, I'm sure." And speaking of being excluded, if you want to make sure that you're never excluded from any of my future videos, the best way to do so would be to help out by hitting those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next confession is, guy I'm seeing legitimately thinks Santa Claus is real. Original post, Christmas Day 2023. I think he actually believes Santa is a real person in some capacity and thinks he delivers presents to his family personally. I'm probably going to leave tomorrow because it's been awful so far and I just want out. I'll call him Adam, fake name. Adam, 25-year-old male, is from a pretty rural area up in the mountains, keeping it vague on purpose, and his family are what I would consider religious extremists. He told me this before I, 23-year-old female, came to see them for Christmas, that they were very religious, as are mine, so I thought it would be similar. I'm not seeing my own family, as I just have my abusive mom left and we are no contact. I've only been seeing him a couple of months and his beliefs have only come up minimally and Santa Claus was not a part of that. I don't even think we've mentioned it at all despite walking around Walmart with Christmas decorations and holiday stuff on shelves and him saying he wishes there were more Christian decor. Adam and his family call Santa Saint Nick to start off with. He has a large family and we had a lot of regular Christmas Eve activities all day, including cooking breakfast and dinner with his family, sitting around and playing with the children, going to a church event around lunchtime. When we went to church, his mom would shake her head disapprovingly at some references towards Santa Claus the pastor made and would whisper to his younger brother and her nephew next to her. I didn't hear what she said. When we made dinner, she told me to fix a plate for Saint Nick and I laughed and said, "Cookies aren't enough?" And Adam shot me a horrified look. I felt the gaze of his mother, and she gave me this sort of fake smile and said, "No, hun, that's not a filling meal." So I loaded up about as much as I gave Adam and the men in his family and put it on a plate. His mom put tinfoil over it and put it in the fridge in the garage. At some point, about 2/3 of his family left. The children went to bed after about an hour of it being dark. Adam's mom told them to go settle into bed so St. Nick can have his dinner and start to deliver presents. This gave me the implication that he would start his night here rather than just stop by and have cookies and leave. I'm not sure. His mom read a couple passages out of the Bible about family as we sat around their wood-burning stove, and we discussed my family situation a bit. Adam's dad then told Adam and I, as well as his little sister, to go to the guest house to sleep. It was about 9 p.m. I changed in the bathroom and said my goodnight to them and was about to walk out the door with Adam when his mom snapped her fingers and said, "Hon, you're forgetting the most important part of Christmas?" Adam looked pale for a sec before kind of nervously laughing and stepped back the door holding my hand. We went out into the garage where he grabbed the plate. I said something like, "She's really serious about Santa getting his food, huh?" trying to lighten the mood. He squeezed my hand really hard and said, "Yes, I would say it's serious." We went back in to microwave the meal, and we awkwardly stood there in front of the microwave watching the plate turn around. I felt his parents' gaze on the back of my head. I said something again, I can't even remember what, kind of lighthearted about Santa having a full stomach if he eats like this at every house. Adam gripped my hand harder than he did before, and the first sign of affection he had given me in front of his parents all night, and said, "His name is St. Nicholas, and he only eats his dinner here. Don't be disrespectful in our home." It sounds calm all typed out like this, but the way he said it gave me chills. His parents didn't say anything, and I felt like I was going to cry. I left to walk in the backyard to the guest house, and his sister was waiting in this mostly empty living room area in there. She said she started the wood-burning stove there, and she showed me where to sleep. A twin bed next to her, and said Adam would be in the next room over with his younger brother. I just laid down and I heard Adam come in maybe half an hour later and go straight to bed. I've just been laying here unable to get to sleep because I'm so anxious, and I already hear movement in the main house at this point, and I don't know what to think. I thought after everyone had left, mostly small children, the St. Nick talk would end. I think his family, or at least him and everyone younger, legitimately believe this is a real person. His parents are really strict and live relatively off-grid and isolated. I barely have service here, so I'll see if this posts because I can't even text my friends SOS right now. I feel like I'm in a horror movie where they believe Santa is like a distant uncle or something. Does anyone know of any traditions like this? They killed a pig sometime in the last week, as well as a couple chickens, and the whole family is coming back tomorrow, and maybe it'll be less weird with more people being here? A few of his cousins gave me a more modern vibe rather than the rest of his nuclear family, but I don't know. I might just head back and stay at my apartment a couple of hours away alone. I don't think I can continue seeing him. It's just been so weird. So that's the end of the original post. Unfortunately, in the comments, the OP never responded to anybody leaving comments, which, to be honest, kind of adds to the ethos of the whole, don't have service very well up here, hope nothing happens. But some of the things some people mentioned was, it sounds very cult-like, sounds like the intro to a horror movie, things like that. And I gotta say, I don't necessarily disagree with them. Thankfully, just over 4 months later, OP left a single update comment on April 1st, 2024. I'm still alive, not dead. Holidays ended horribly, and my relationship is over. Probably for the best now that I've had some time away from him, talked to my friends, read comments. Because I essentially ruined Christmas, St. Nick literally left the food untouched because there was a non-believer in the house. And Adam's mom made a point of it being because I was there, and I was essentially barred from seeing him and called a degenerate in front of his whole family. I really did want to make a proper update to this, but felt ridiculous and embarrassed that it, 1, blew up so huge, 2, everything I said was absolutely picked apart. I get that it sounded dramatic and whatever. I guess I just write dramatically, but I treated this no different than how I write in my diary. I think this is it. I can't imagine typing out another few paragraphs of the worst Christmas I've ever had, completely alone with crazy religious nuts and in my feels, only for it to be called a horror movie in the making. Like, yeah, I know, my life right now just sucks. Wish there was more to say or it was more dramatic for everyone wanting that, but I just don't have it in me. Wish I had a real family and relationships that don't suck. Wish I had answers for you of why his family is so crazy around the holidays and aren't normal people that let their son date girls outside their borderline Amish lifestyle. I don't know. The end. I think it's for the best that OP got away from him. I mean, it seems pretty clear that if you're in that circle and you don't almost essentially immediately bend the knee and agree to follow their weird traditions and whatnot to a T, they cast you as an outsider and cast you away. And considering they're doing all of that on a place described as up in the mountains with barely any service, I too, like OP, would run away and not look back. Our next post is, my boyfriend is really into anime. I don't watch cartoons, but my boyfriend convinced me to watch some of his favorites. I wish I didn't, and now I can't see my boyfriend the same way. Original post, May 18th, 2025. My 26-year-old female, boyfriend, 29-year-old male, is really into anime. It's honestly his biggest hobby. I don't watch cartoons, however, my boyfriend has been trying to get me to watch them with him. We've been together for almost 18 months, and we've lived together for 4 months. My boyfriend said it would mean a lot to him if I watched it with him, so I decided to give it a try. I wish I hadn't. I was gobsmacked. I can honestly say I wish I had never watched any of it. Even thinking about it now makes my skin crawl, and it took me a while to be able to write this post. There was lots of SA. Multiple instances of the male characters being in relationships with children, but it's okay because they aren't actually young girls, they're over 1,000 years old. Gross and unrealistic proportions on pretty much every female character, no matter their age. Almost none of them wear proper clothes. The way female characters are portrayed and treated is frankly gross. Ever since I watched, I can't see my boyfriend the same way. This wasn't one episode or one single anime. All of the ones he watches are the same. My boyfriend says these are his favorite kind, and he doesn't see any problems with it. He told me I'm overreacting, and there's nothing wrong with any of it, whether it happens in anime or real life. I'm so grossed out. I had no idea these were the kinds of cartoons he likes. Every time I think of it, my skin crawls. This week, I'm away for a family wedding while my boyfriend had to stay back in Brisbane for his job, so I have some time to think. Ever since my boyfriend told me he doesn't see any problems with what his cartoons portray, I can't think of him the same way. I don't think I can continue the relationship knowing he feels this way. He says my opinions are outdated. I don't see how we can move past this. I'd like to clarify that I'm not really an anime watcher. I've watched maybe a couple, and the ones that I have don't even really count because they're the very Americanized animes like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, some Pokemon, or even maybe a little bit more controversial pick to say anime, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm not trying to judge an entire spectrum of people here, but I can't say that I haven't always been weirded out by the animes where the characters are 1,000 years old and they look like they're 12. I couldn't even tell you a single anime that actually has that. You know, all I can really say is, you watch what you want to watch, but it doesn't surprise me if you're going to find a lot of people that don't have those same sensibilities about that kind of content. One commenter wrote, "I'm sorry you had that experience. There is a lot of awesome anime out there that doesn't feature any of that crap. So it's not like your boyfriend has an excuse. The fact that he specifically seeks out this content is deeply concerning by itself, but this, he told me I'm overreacting and there's nothing wrong with any of it, whether it happens in anime or real life, pushes it from gross to actively dangerous. You are 100% valid for being disgusted. These aren't the kinds of values that I want any man in my life to have, let alone a romantic partner." Another commenter wrote, "That is definitely a gaslighting response. Yeah, sure, there are a lot of things we consume in media, many of which can be questionable. That doesn't make them okay if they happen in reality. This stuff being his favorite kind of anime, and he's okay with it happening, is more he would like this to be a part of his own life, especially when it's the main type he watches. There are many types of anime that don't treat women characters as merely hooking up objects. Watching anime doesn't have to be a bad thing. My boyfriend watches anime, and I've watched some that he really likes to bond with him more. Some are not my cup of tea, but some were actually pretty enjoyable. The kind you're talking about, though, if it doesn't sit right with you, you should definitely listen to your gut. The OP then went on to post an update November 26th, 2025, a bit over 6 months later. My 26-year-old female update isn't very exciting. When I got back to Brisbane, there was another argument about my ex-boyfriend's anime, and he, 29-year-old male, kept telling me that I was overreacting and being a prude or stuck up. He broke up with me, and so I made plans to move out. I moved out less than a week later, and he was shocked. Apparently, he didn't really mean to break up with me and thought it would just be a wake-up call to me that the cartoons were not so bad. I still moved out, and I temporarily went to stay with one of my brothers and his wife. I was a little nervous moving to another city because I'd lived in Brisbane for 3 years and considered it my home. But I've moved before, and I had to leave after the way the relationship ended. I don't watch cartoons, but I tried to give the ones my ex-boyfriend watches a chance because it was his biggest hobby, and I wanted to be a good girlfriend. I had no idea those cartoons would be so disgusting. My ex-boyfriend was shocked when I moved out, and even though he broke up with me first, he got upset that I was breaking up with him. I haven't had contact with him since I left. I've moved on. I've just been accepted into a PhD program, and I'm so excited. I have no plans to have contact with my ex-boyfriend or to watch any cartoons again. For context about why I hated those cartoons, there was lots of SA. Multiple instances of the male characters being in relationships with children, but it's okay because they aren't actually young girls, they're over 1,000 years old. Gross and unrealistic proportions on pretty much every female character no matter their age. Almost none of them wear proper clothes. The way female characters are portrayed and treated is frankly gross. I think OP clearly made the right move here. I mean, if anything, just because of how uncomfortable they were about who this guy was after seeing the kind of content he indulges in. But does anybody else feel at least a little bit saddened by the fact that this ruined cartoons or anime for them? Like I said, I haven't even really watched anime, but I know there are some great ones out there that if somebody came along and liked it, would be worth being mindful of giving a try. Like, it hurts to think because they had that experience, would they never want to give Spirited Away a chance? One commenter wrote, "It should probably be said that his choice of content doesn't reflect anime as an entire genre. There are very artistic and thought-provoking animated works of art there. Just like how there are trashy porno and then there are cinematic masterpieces. What your boyfriend was into probably is bottom-of-the-barrel trash. It's also a very common trope in these lowbrow anime to have a, usually female, adult inhabit the body of a young child. Regardless, hope it doesn't ruin your view of the genre." A second commenter wrote, "I've never understood the concept of telling your significant other you're breaking up with them as a wake-up call. That seems kind of nonsensical to me. I'm glad you're pursuing a career and it's bringing you happiness. I'm sure he can find someone who shares his affinity for what he likes. Same for yourself." On the whole saga, a user named Mysterious Treat left a comment writing, "Threatening to remove himself from her life forever, and shocked she quickly accepted. Never threaten people with a good time. Really?" Our next story is, my husband got jealous over the girl he led on for years at our wedding. Original post, November 6th, 2022. I, 25-year-old female, got married to my husband, 24-year-old male, we'll call him Jim, a week ago after dating for 2.5 years. Jim has a friend called Misha, 22-year-old female, who was invited to the wedding. He and Misha have known each other since high school and were close friends, and Misha had a very obvious crush on Jim from what he and others who know them have told me. Jim told me this after I met Misha for the first time, and he confessed that he leaned into her crush and led her on throughout their high school years and for a little while after. Before we got together, because he was struggling with his mental health and he really liked her attention. He seemed genuinely guilty about all of that because he thought Misha was a nice girl and a good friend, and because he showed guilt, I didn't feel the need to bring it up or argue about it, despite thinking it was a crappy thing to do. Plus, Misha is a nice girl who has never overstepped boundaries and has been nothing but kind and friendly towards me, and I now consider her a friend too. Misha moved away to the city last year and has done really well for herself and has a long-term boyfriend who none of us have met yet. So when it came to sending wedding invites, I told her she was welcome to bring him as her +1. The first red flag came when Jim was weirdly resistant to the idea of Misha bringing her boyfriend, but he excused it on being concerned about the number of guests we invited, and the matter was dropped. When the wedding day came, Misha showed up in this beautiful dress, nothing inappropriate for a wedding, and with her boyfriend on her arm, who I'll admit is a very handsome guy. Think a Kit Harington type. She also lost weight and has a haircut that suits her better, and I thought she looked great. We also found out throughout the night that her boyfriend is very successful and earns more than practically anyone else who attended. Throughout the reception, I noticed Jim glaring at Misha and her boyfriend the whole time, and he was really cold and short towards her when she came over to congratulate us and give us a gift. He was also straight up kind of rude to her boyfriend when Misha introduced us to him. When his mom, who's always known and liked Misha, mentioned that she was glad Misha found a great guy and praised her boyfriend for being so nice, Jim snapped that, "At least she won't be desperate and hung up on me for the rest of her life," which I thought was cruel and uncalled for, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't want to argue at my wedding despite the fact that he frankly sounded bitter. The whole thing has left an awful taste in my mouth, and I can't help but think that Jim got jealous that Misha has found a guy who's honestly quite a catch, who she's very clearly in love with, and is now completely over Jim. Half update. After getting some PMs from people, I decided to go through his phone while he was napping after work, and needless to say, this marriage is over. I'll post a real update when I've sorted everything out. So that's the end of the original post, so I guess that's a little bit of a teaser for the update that's upcoming. Although we do know the outcome in this circumstance, I will ask, is his behavior an indicative sign that something nefarious has to be going on? Or could it have been possible that Jim was just jealous and hung up about Misha, while not also being some kind of jerk that had something nefarious on his phone that blew up his relationship? I'd love to know if people think this is a typical hand-in-hand thing, or there could have been a world where he was just hung up about Misha. A user named Stuck in My Mind left a comment writing, "It's giving bitter. Can't imagine how that must have been for you. Says a lot about his character, to be honest." The OP replied, "It felt a lot like watching a kid get upset at another kid for playing with a toy they personally never wanted to play with in the first place. If that makes any sense." Stuck in My Mind replied, "I get it, but I mean, apart from this, have you ever had any indication of what a crappy guy he is? I mean, character matters and he lacks a lot of it. Can imagine it being so unsettling and such a turnoff." The OP replied, "He's definitely always been quite insecure, but I thought it was something he was really working on and making progress with." The OP then posted an update 8 days later, November 14th, 2022. Hey everyone, I'm posting this here because I said in my last post that I would update when I was able to. Pretty much the day after my original post, I got some PMs from people suggesting that I go through my husband Jim's phone to see if he and Misha were truly just friends before this and that nothing romantic happened between them that would explain his reaction at the wedding. He always takes a 45-minute nap after work, and so I used that as my opportunity to swipe his phone from where it was charging on his desk so that I could look through it. I've seen him put in his passcode a ton of times, so that wasn't an issue. I didn't find anything in his texts with her, but I know that Jim goes on Instagram a lot, so I checked there too. The immediate red flag was that he'd used an app lock that required a passcode to access Instagram, but the idiot used the same passcode that he uses to unlock his phone, so I got into that right away. It's his birth year, go figure. And what would you know? I go to his messages with Misha and find messages from him the morning after our wedding telling her how beautiful she looked that night, how much he'd missed her, how he felt that her boyfriend being there spoiled his opportunity to catch up with her, and that he was desperate to meet up with her. Misha never replied to these messages, and he sent some more to her later that day. I won't get into what he said because they were very personal insults that were frankly just gross, but just think about the kind of stuff that you would read on that Nice Guys subreddit. Misha left him unread, and when I clicked on her account, it appears that she's blocked him. I scrolled through their messages quite far back, and I believe nothing romantic has happened between them. I wish that was all, but looking into his other conversations on Instagram, I found that he's been messaging other girls on there. They seem like aspiring Instagram model types from our area. Most of these conversations were just him shooting a shot and getting left unread, but others had evolved into flirting, and 2 of them resulted in sexting. And the most embarrassing part of all, the inappropriate photos he was sending to these women weren't even of him. I know what his body looks like, and he doesn't have chiseled abs and isn't that well endowed. I think he must have found a man's profile on some adult's website and used those pictures, just cropping the face out. These 2 conversations happened in the past 6 months. I ended up texting his mom and his brother from my phone, asking them to come and pick him up from the apartment, and then I went to wake him up. I told him that I knew about the girls he was messaging on Instagram, that he needed to pack a bag and get the heck out before I started throwing his stuff out onto the street and causing a scene. He started crying and begging me not to kick him out and swore that they were just messages and that he would never actually cheat on me, but I don't believe him for a second. Then he had the nerve to tell me that he didn't want me to tell anyone else about what he had done, but I left the room and started ignoring him by that point. He left with his mom and his brother and is staying there from what I know. I've blocked him on everything for the time being until I'm ready to tell him that I'm seeking annulment. Thankfully, where I'm from, you can get one almost no questions asked as long as you haven't been married for longer than 30 days, and I've already looked into the process. I haven't really left my apartment at all this week, and I've been calling in sick to work because I don't feel like I can face people. I'm just so embarrassed that I've wasted over 2 years on this man and that I married him in the first place. I don't feel like I can even talk to people about this. So posting here has helped, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words, advice, and support. I might reach out to Misha when the dust is settled, but I think I'll need to build up some courage for that. Then the OP posted another update 4 months later, March 15th, 2023. An update to let you know how I am. Hello everyone, I just thought I'd give an update to my situation since I still get messages of support on here every week or so. You'll be glad to hear that I was able to get annulment and I didn't have to go through a messy divorce with Jim. I struck an agreement with him that I wouldn't tell a soul about his cheating or what happened with Misha and would leave him alone forever if he agreed to the annulment and got it over quickly. I did end up sticking to my end of the bargain, but it ended up not mattering because it turns out his brother is quite the gossip and let the cat out of the bag over Christmas after getting into an argument with Jim while drunk. A lot of Jim's family were ticked and asked for the money that they contributed to his half of the wedding fund back, and some of our mutual friends have cut contact with him. A couple of our friends plastered everything on Facebook and humiliated him. It was interesting to watch the back and forth between them and Jim, honestly. I lived in our apartment and covered the rent on my own, while he lived at his parents' until the lease ended back in January, and I'm now living with my dad, and I plan to stay here for a while and take things easy. In January, I also tried reaching out to Misha via text, asking if she'd like to meet up for coffee to talk about anything. I never got a response directly from her, but a few days later, I got a call from her number, and it was her boyfriend on the other end. He said they were both sorry for what had happened to me and that they hope I'm doing well, but that Misha thought it was best to cease any contact, as this whole ordeal had made her anxiety and mental health problems spiral and had landed her back in therapy. I did ask why she never told me that Jim had messaged her the day after the wedding, and her boyfriend confessed that he had advised her not to get involved, and his direct words were, "I'm sorry to sound rude, but it's not her circus." I'm a little disappointed that she doesn't want to talk to me, but I get where she's coming from and I can't force her to do anything. To be honest, I think she's been looking for a way to divorce herself from our hometown and the people she and Jim knew back in high school for a while now. As for me, I'm also in therapy as I want to sort through these feelings and get back to feeling good about myself again before I even think about entering the dating scene again. I've also been firm about ending friendships with anyone who's taken Jim's side, as I don't want him finding his way into my life again. So far, he stayed away from me and hasn't tried to contact me, although his mom reached out over Christmas to ask me if there was any chance I might forgive Jim and take him back, as in her opinion, you two are just meant to be together. I didn't respond to her, and I've blocked her on pretty much everything now too. Thank you again for all your kind words and support. I'm certain leaving that jerk would have been harder for me had I not had hundreds of comments backing me up. Little bit of a burn to the ground feeling here, kind of smoldering ashes, but at least there's like a upward trajectory from here. I just worry in situations like this, will OP become that kind of person that in future relationships says, give me your phone. I need to be able to look at your phone through your messages all the time. All I really can do is just wish OP the best. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy update-filled story, why not check out that video on the left of the screen right now? Or if you missed my latest video, you can check that out on the right of the screen. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more updates, with some more stories, with updates.